program was doing well by improving the conditions in the camps, we did find that there were some improvements in communication of folks as well as program data. For people making a report about at the camp, they liked the ease of reporting a camp, but they did want status updates about what was occurring with their complaint. We were pleased to find that the city was meeting legal requirements for posting notice, and we saw firsthand that crews were being respectful with those experiencing homelessness. These crews are hired through a contract with the city, and many of the crew members themselves are formerly homeless individuals. People living in the camps wanted better information on when the cleanups would occur. So rather than a 7 or 10-day window, they wanted more information about when exactly they would have to move. Assessment criteria need to be better developed and applied. Currently, some of the criteria overlap and are not clear to the crews or the supervisors giving scores to the sites. Program data needs to be improved. It relies on several manual processes and separate systems. Currently, the program is not monitoring timeliness. The program is, however, working on some options for better systems. Program storage policies need to be more detailed on what is to be stored and how, and the facilities themselves needed to be upgraded. However, I would like to note that the program does have a new facility at this point where it is consolidated property. We recommend that improving communication data and internal policies by doing the following. 1, improving communication of people in the camps about when crews will likely be there, and also improving the durability of the notices that are put up. 2, ensure contractors have a common understanding of what is personal property. 3, improve storage policies and procedures. 4, give complaint status updates. 5, improve data quality and reduce manual processes. 6, use data to analyze and improve effectiveness, efficiency, and timeliness of the cleanups. And finally, 7, to clarify the assessment risk factors of storing and ensure a common understanding among the crews about the criteria and identify what needs to be photographed. With that, I will turn it back over to Eric.
So we're prepared for any questions that you have. Commissioner Hurst.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all. One of my favorite occupations are people who do audits, because they're like just the numbers people, right? Don't blame me, this is just what I found. I have a couple of questions. First, about the restoration project in the Green Streets. I thank you for your audit. I think you did a really good job about really laying out what our vision is as compared to what our outcomes are. And you said that number 5 was the only recommendation that was not agreed to. And so I guess my question is, for the 5th recommendation, A, why was it not agreed to? And B, what's a good outcome? Because 4 years does seem a long time. 1 year seems too often. How do we get to a place where the public gets the information they need?
That's a discussion that should have with the Bureau. We mentioned in our report that the 4-year interval seemed too long. On the other hand, a lot of these are really complicated projects that have very small incremental improvements. And so I think you're absolutely correct that where that interval lies, where there's resources that can be devoted to it, and also where it really makes sense, is something we're not taking a stance on. But when we were performing the audit, we looked at the report cards. We were doing our field work in the summer of 2018. The index started, I can't remember the exact date, but it was either 2011 or 2012. I think I might be wrong on that, but there was only one reporting period within I think it had been almost 8 years that the program had been in place. So we just didn't find that it was a tool that was useful for us for tracking trends or looking at whether or not projects were effective in meeting their goals.
Thank you very much. I also appreciate the 2-page updates, because that's helpful. One of the things that used to make me crazy was that we get an audit and then we hear nothing else about it until the next audit happened. And so this is really a good way for, at least I'll speak for me personally, to be able to track the work that's being done and to find out if we really are improving our governance in the process. So thank you for that. My last question has to do with the reports around the cleanup of the homeless camps. I know that this is the cleanups are a complaint-driven system, but do you take complaints from both both directions, or is this just people that want people that they're uncomfortable with move? So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to understand if I'm houseless and my ID's gone, my medicine's gone, if I call and complain, am I gonna get help if I go through this process?
Commissioner, so they take complaints from anybody. So it could be somebody who lives in a neighborhood and somebody is, there's a group of folks that are homelessness near the neighborhood, they want that place cleaned up. It could be somebody who potentially is living in a camp. In many cases, when we went out and did field work, the folks who were actually living in a camp helped with the cleanup.
And do we track that? I mean, do we track where the complaints are coming from?
Commissioner, we don't particularly track like, is it coming from a particular address or neighborhood? They tend to be confidential.
Confidential?
So for example, some anonymous, exactly, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. So they tend to be more of an anonymous feature in the database and everything like that. Some people do self-identify and say, hey, I'm from this is my address. They will give information on where that camp is. So here's the cross street, here's what I heard, here's the complaint and everything like that. It could be somebody who just leaves their email address, however, so.
And do we have a way of, how does the prioritization work?
Commissioner, the way that it's supposed to work is basically staff in the program look at it, they will send it out to one of the contractors to do a site assessment. The site assessment will take certain criteria like where's the location. So for example, is it a sensitive location, like is it near a school? They will also look at other factors. For example, is there, are the needles present? Are they blocking access? And they will make basically a score based on that criteria. And that criteria will basically identify whether that site needs to be cleaned up and kind of the priority for that.
My last question, well, actually my next to last question, is I have heard a lot from community members who have lost ID in medicine and have had a really hard time getting those real necessary needs met. And so are there any recommendations about how we protect people's vital like ID information and medication to make sure that it gets back to the right person in a timely manner?
So Commissioner, one of the recommendations is actually to improve the policies and procedures for storing. One of the things that we did find is that some of that more sensitive information, like if you had somebody with a credit card or a passport or something like that, medication, that actually needs to be stored separately from the rest of the belongings and needs kind of a higher level of security for that. So that's what we're hoping is going to happen. And I think that the program was amenable to that. So.
Wonderful. And what is the training for people who are subcontracted to go out and do this service as far as the cleanups are concerned? Based on your report, it sounds like there's not a standard across the board about what a priority site is, what's appropriate, what the how much time the community needs in order to know that something is going to be happening at that site.
So Commissioner, in terms of, there are kind of two different things going on. One is the assessment criteria, which you have one contractor only kind of doing it. And I think with more clarification of that criteria, it'll be very helpful. I think that will resolve a lot of issues. In terms of the folks who are actually doing bigger cleanups and everything, they do receive training. I would say that really when they get out in the field, when we did our field work and rode along with the crews and everything, sometimes it really is a judgment call on what is property and what is not. And that's something that is difficult, but that the program gives updates to. And that's something that we're hoping that they can refine that information and continue to basically work with those crews.
Thank you, I appreciate your work.
Very good. I'd like to just read a couple of comments, if I could. First of all, thank you, Madam Auditor. Thank you to your team for 3 what I think are very strong audits. So thank you for your detailed work. I particularly appreciate the fact that you may not have any knowledge about the Bureau or the program that you're going into, and you really take the time to get under the hood and with the employees who manage these programs, and the feedback I get has been uniformly very positive, so I want to thank you for that. There's an important symbiotic relationship here between the enterprises that we're individually responsible for and frankly our limited bandwidth and inability to be accountable for everything that is going on in a $5.2 billion enterprise. So we really rely on you to help us be the eyes and ears in terms of the programs and help us sharpen our programs to make them more effective. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you for that. I want to speak specifically to the homeless and urban camping impact reduction program. This has obviously had a very rapid evolution just in the last several years. We have an Anderson agreement, a legal agreement, which has been in place since 2014, and it was determined that the city needed to create a process where people living outside would be given notification and adequate time to remove their belongings, unless, of course, there were extenuating public health or environmental circumstances. If belongings were not removed, the agreement was that the city would bag and tag and hold those belongings for 30 days. And you've made a couple of suggestions on how that process could be further refined. And I also want to acknowledge that the office moved the storage from a place that was really inconvenient to a place that is now centrally located and easier for people to gain access to. The coordinated campsite cleanup program started out in 2015 as a 1 FTE program in the mayor's office. And it's now grown over the years to include the 1-point contact campsite reporting system, which you mentioned, as well as the homeless urban camping impact reduction program. The 1 point of contact program received 25,460 reports this year, or excuse me, last year. We're expecting to exceed that this year. So we have a 3 FTE program that had 25,000 plus reports last year. In 2015, they cleaned 139 camps. Last year, they cleaned 3,122 camps. The three-person team takes in all of the complaints. They have developed a prioritization risk assessment, which includes the factors that you indicated, environmental factors, public health factors, and other considerations. They have daily phone calls with outreach providers and emergency responders, and they also work to develop initiatives to address hygiene and trash issues that we see every day. And they attempt to establish partnerships with those in the camps to make that happen. Just to give you some context on today, in the last 7 days, we've received 802 new campsite reports, identifying roughly 200 campsites throughout the city. So this is a widespread issue. When I came into office, the city was cleaning approximately 10 camps per week. We have increased the capacity, and now we're cleaning about 40 camps per week. And of course, we've now also entered into an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT to be responsible for those right-of-ways, because frankly, we have the ability to clean those camps in a manner that we think is more appropriate for the city of Portland. The process looks something like this. All reports are read and reviewed by the city staff, and an assessment is conducted for all sites that have been reported, so long as it's not a duplicate. Then Clean Start PDS is dispatched to perform the risk assessment that you mentioned. They pick up trash, and they also work with the people in the camp. They pass out trash bags, and often there's a collective effort to keep the campsite clean. Staff are looking for things like the amounts of trash, biohazard materials, needles, proximities to school, private residence, and whether it's blocking sidewalks or restricting access. Depending on the results of the predetermined assessment criteria, the sites are then evaluated. Staff then determine whether another level of intervention is necessary, and that intervention frequently includes engaging social service providers to put people in a place that is that they're more likely to be able to get help than the location where they already are. The program has had to walk the line between working with our outreach providers to get folks the help they need to get off and stay off the street, and holding the line when people need to move from public property when the situation has deteriorated. I I want to be very clear on something. The goal of this program is not to solve homelessness. There are other programs that are supported and funded by the city to address the issue of homelessness. This program's goal is specifically to reduce the impacts of these camps by managing the waste and keeping the community safe and clean for the benefit of everyone in the community. We only started tracking last year, but last year we collected about 1,300 tons of garbage. We've collected 1,139 tons just at the beginning of this month so far this year. So we're collecting far more garbage this year.